Thank you for Googling that beforehand.
This was in the pre-work.
Yes! You did it! You did the pre-work! Who needs that repeated? So everyone got it? Y'all good with TDD? Lecture over? Just start clapping? All right. So what TDD is, and I'm sorry if I'm getting real mushy. Yo, this is the last lecture I'm giving you guys from on one. I know. And then you'll learn from better, smarter instructors than me. I know. The style will be different, so just be aware of it. Probably not going to start with maximum fist bump Power Ranger gifts, but you'll probably learn a lot more, right? Either way, test-driven development is where you essentially write out your methods. You do all your development. You write code based on tests, right? Because the tests describe the user story. The test describes what the features are. I can see you're all like staring at this. And it's like very obviously distracting. It's a loop, all right? Nothing new comes up from that. If you want something boring, I'll leave it up for you. Ready? Teamwork makes the dream work. So, I'm sorry. I'm talking to you guys and you're all just like, whoa, maximum fist bump. But yes, who's familiar with like writing code based on tests? Stop playing. Every time you hit learn and you see all those red lights, you're like, oh, I'm failing the test. Let me go write this method. Test-driven development. That's what it is, right? So let's write some tests, right? The reason TDD is like really important is because when you hear these user stories that we're trying to get you to understand like how development works in the product lifecycle, in the development lifecycle of what's going on in the quote-unquote real world, you're going to have an app and someone's going to tell you, hey, I want you to build this feature. This is what it should do, right? I want it to be able to do this. I want to be able to return this information, right? And so essentially, because you have all these tests, you know each part of your code works, right? Who has like written something and then when you run learn, it broke an earlier test? Right? That's how you know that like if you write a method that depends on another method, right now you're finally in project mode. Who here has a method or a runner file that calls 3, 4, 5, 10 different methods in it? Right? That's basically what you start chaining all these methods together. When you get an error message, how do you know which one's broken? Sometimes it tells you which one it is, but even when you're looking at it, you're like, I know it's not this one. It's because this one actually calls on another method that calls on another method, and then maybe you're stuck in the while loop and you have no idea what's going on. All right? If you write good tests and your tests are always passing, you can guarantee the return value of what your method does. So you know immediately, if you change your code, you run all your tests, you run RSpec, you run learn, all of a sudden you can see, oh, hey, you know what? Because I changed code over here, now my other code is broken. And so that allows you to fix problems quickly, right? Who here has more than like 200-300 lines of code already? Probably? All right. You've only been working on it for a few days. Can you imagine like an app that you've been working on for months? It's probably thousands of lines of code, right? Where your code, like who would recognize their own code that you wrote last week? Exactly. Especially if you put like, you know, like self.all.select do x. You know what I'm saying? You're just like, oh, I know exactly what x is. Tests are really good for helping identify if something else is breaking something else. Because if I know all my tests are passing, then it's anything new that I wrote is like gonna affect something else than before, right? So let's go over that. Normally I do this in the REPL, but we should probably do it the right way. I mean, like dropping some sweet hints. So you know what this is? You know what these are? Who knows what the Power Rangers are? So I know like some of you guys don't know what Captain Planet is, and it like breaks my heart, but that's okay. So what I have here is a awfully simple, rather, like Power Rangers model, right? I have my Red Ranger, my Blue Ranger, my black, pink, and yellow, right? The original, the OGs. They added some weird colors, and I was like, all right, cool. It's got too weird for me. And I wrote this method called assemble, right? This is when they all like maximum fist bump, they jump in the Megazord, and they like beat up the boss. Like Rita Skeeter had like no idea what hit her. You know what I'm saying? Rita's like the bad guy or girl. Cool. Thank you for some nods there, right? So all I really did was I added red, blue, black, pink, and yellow, and then I called the method. So far so good, nothing wild. Cool, what happens? Am I even in the right folder? Let me see. Cool. So what happens when I run it? Oh, by the way, this is very aptly named, right? This is just the Power Rangers RB. Classic. All right. Oh, come on. I know it's in here. Don't give me that. Where am I? Oh, I'm in the wrong one. Bloop, bloop, bloop. No. 11? No. I'm just in a different folder altogether. Here we go. Did you see it? Too late. So what happens when I run this? Golly. How happens when I run it? By the way, if you just press one letter and then tab doesn't work for you, if you keep mashing that tab, it'll tell you like all the possibilities. In case you like forgot what you named it. Just hit tab twice. All right? And then once you hit a unique value, it'll autofill the rest. Just my last pro tip for you. Yes, thank you. So what happens? What's gonna spit out? Yep. All right, because I can concatenate strings, right? So that totally works. But if you know anything about like Power Rangers lore, there was like this one weirdo that came in out of nowhere, like the Green Ranger. Do you remember that one? Anyways, there's some weirdo, right? There's a new one that came in, right, called the Green Ranger, right? And he was kind of cool, I guess. He had his own Megazord. He had like his own by himself. Right? Like all 5 of these clowns got together to make one, and this guy was like, "Yo, guess what? I've got my own." It's wild. It was wild. You should watch it again. The Mighty Morphin one. They came out with this dinosaur version, and it was like whack. But either way, it's not important at all to coding. How do I make this? How do I add the Green Ranger into this like assemble method? All right, like let's just say the user story was, hey, I want to add a new Ranger, and I want to add them to like the original Megazord. Cool. So I just made this method. Green Ranger exists now. How do I add the Green Ranger in? It's easier than it sounds. Sorry, you could go for it. You go for it. Nobody? Nothing? Yes! I would just do this. Right? No, that was not what you meant?
Well, actually,
What did you mean by add it to assemble? I'm sorry. Oh, okay. All right. Cool. So now you want me to do this? Yeah? Everyone cool with it? No, not cool with it? What's up?
so assemble it's you put something, you print something, but during the string, there are different types. One is you print something, another one is just a string.
Correct. So we'll see what happens, right?
Let's test it.
Let's just test it. Right? Interesting. I think it's because I didn't save the file. So what's going on over here? I think you're right.
Printing and returning. You have a return value of green, but it's still printing.
Yes, exactly. So I'll just like add green here, and it'll be no big deal. All right, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. Cool. Now green's in there. This usually works better with people that are like super into the Power Rangers, but Some more interesting Power Rangers facts, right? Because this is going to really help you in Mod 2. Is that the Green Ranger actually becomes the White Ranger, and then totally kicks the Red Ranger out and just starts leading the troop. This is like actually what happens. I don't know what happens to the Red Ranger. Called in sick one day, lost his job. It's rough. It's rough. So now I'm like working on this project, right? I'm working on this for months. It's a very complicated project. And now my user story says, hey, the Green Ranger actually becomes the White Ranger and kicks out the Red Ranger. And I'm like, all right, cool. Let's just say for whatever reason, I'm writing a ton of code and I actually no longer see this. This is like awesome code. Like awesome code is like right here. And it's like just a bunch of it, right? And I'm over here working. I'm like, all right, cool. I found some of these Rangers in here. And all right, so my story says to turn green to white. All right, I think someone showed this cool trick right here. Boop, right? Boop, right? Yep. And turn them to the White Ranger. All right, cool. And then also in that user story, I'm supposed to delete the Red Ranger, right? Just like kick him out of the team. It's a loser. So I'm just gonna like find the Red Ranger, and I'm like, all right, bet you're gone. Sorry, dude. Life's hard. I'm just gonna kill it. And now I'm going to run this app. What's going to happen?
That will have really be simple.
Huh?
It's going to not run because
It should break, right? Because when I assemble, I'm still calling on the Red Ranger. And this right here is just, it's just a test, right? Like I did all the user features, I did all the user stories, and then I'm like, all right, cool, let me just run it and make sure it's good to go. When I have like 30, 50, 1,000 methods in like a really large, complicated app, and mind you, I'm only in one file. If I had a different model, right? If I had a models folder and each one of them held one ranger, I did class Red Ranger, class Blue Ranger, and I had each individual file, you can start to see the complexity already built out, right? They each have their own initialized method. Or if you want to get super fancy, because they're all rangers, they probably inherit from what? Like a ranger module, I'm saying, or ranger class, like refactor styles. Either way, it'd be so hard to see exactly where I added all these extra things, like Red Ranger still being called on. And it's so easy to see because I literally just did in front of you, and it's all in one file, and it's all at the end. But just think for a second, like, how would I be able to test all different parts of my application at any given time? If I need to add one thing, I'm like, oh, hey, listen, I need this change. Cool, I'm gonna make this change. I have to make sure I didn't break my application by making these changes, right? And that's why TDD is so important. If you can start writing your own tests, you can ensure the sustainability and longevity of your application, right? You can probably launch a school also, you know, write a bunch of RSpec tests, build out labs, have students come in, learn code. Talking about this. All right, so that's easy, right? I would just remove this here, and it should be good to go. Yeah? So let's start writing our own tests, right? Let's just jump right into it. First thing I do when I get a brand new file is I need to look through like all the files. I need to understand the structure, right? I say this all the time. So what is going on over here? I have a gem file. This is just where I'm pulling my gems, pretty standard data. And there's something called RSpec and expectations. RSpec expectations. Who knows what this is? It's okay. So RSpec is just like a framework that is pre-written Ruby, like any gem is, that allows you to write tests, to test your own Ruby code. That's all it is. I'm sure you've seen it because you've dug into the RSpec files for all of your labs, right? Did we go into gems? Did we talk about gems? Right? Who wants to tell me what a gem is? Just in your own words. It could be okay. Don't be like it's a birthstone, right? There's like emerald, like diamond.
Code that someone else wrote that you can pull into your whatever you're building.
Yes, right. It's code that somebody else wrote. So somebody wrote a bunch of cool code that allows you to write tests for your own application, right? And then it's our best friend here. Cool.
What's the difference between RSpec and expectations?
Yes, great question. So RSpec is just the original framework. Expectation, allows you to write a lot more matchers. And I'll explain what matchers are here in a little bit. Okay? It gives RSpec way more functionality. Do you remember when I added pry and then I added pry nav and then I added some sweet functionality to it? It just adds additional functionality to RSpec, and I'm going to touch on that here in a little bit. Cool? Great question. Thank you for that. And then I just have this program. All we're going to do is right now, the user just wants me to write a method that checks whether or not something is a palindrome. Nothing sexy, but it pays the bills, right? I'm just a freelancer, and I just have to write an app like, hey, just check if it's a palindrome. Like, Roger, got it. Cool, will do. The README is empty right now. So I'll add some cool notes for you later. So how do I get all these gems into my file, into my application? What do I have to run? Right, bundle, right? So let me do that. So notice I only had 3 gems, but here it's installing all of these other gems. Like, where are these gems coming from? Yes. Oh, you guys are listening. Oh. All right. Yeah. So some of these gems depend on other gems, and they'll just pull in everything. Bundler's magic. So in order for me to get RSpec going, all right, I have to initialize RSpec. Typically, it's just RSpec -- init. Can you guys see the bottom line? Yeah. All right. It's going to do some cool stuff for me if it works. Okay. Oh, sorry. I need to not do that. See what I did there? I put like a space after -- throws like another argument. Getting rough. So this is what it did, right? It made these files for me. Very much like how I can have rake do something for me. It just made these 2 files. .rspec, it made a folder spec, and in that folder made a file called spechelper.rb. So let's check out what it is. What's .rspec, this new file? It's just doing something called require spec helper. Cool. What is spec helper? Let's find out. So in this folder spec, I have spec helper file. I think it's like command control enter. No, command control F. Right. So this file was made with RSpec init. Right. I'm not going to go over all of this, but this is for you to start understanding like how I'm going to start reading through all of this documentation, so I can become a better developer. I can understand when things auto-magically happen for me. I can like dig in a little bit, right? Let's see. It talks about like require RSpec helper, something about a load path, right? So look, the generated RSpec file contains this, which will what? It's always to be loaded without explicitly requiring it in any of the files. So I can read this and know that I don't have to require RSpec, right? Okay. Boom, boom, boom. What else? So it does some configuration, right? Something about matchers. Cool. I can always Google any of these things, like what this means, but it's good to understand like what's happening in here. They're all commented out, but look, you can easily uncomment some of this and then bring those configuration files into your application. The documentations are really good on this, and you can easily just look, seed. Right? You could seed some data if you want to. But the bottom line is, if you do read through this, you'll understand that RSpec only works if I have a file with the underscore of spec. All right. So in order for me to test this program.rb, I need to have some sort of file in here. Okay. That was weird. Like my file is called program right now, right? I need to have something called underscore spec for RSpec to read it. Otherwise, it's not going to recognize it, right? So that's what -- spec helper is kind of looking for, as like a pattern to match to look for. Yeah. So if I don't have this, RSpec won't even find the file. Now, first thing we should do is we should probably, like, I don't know, build out RSpec. How do we do that? Who has looked under the hood and seen the RSpec file? Cool. First thing RSpec does is it describes what it's trying to do, right? So why not we just do that? And what am I describing? The method that I'm testing, right? So is palindrome. And what is palindrome supposed to do? Well, great question. It should, what? Return true if the input rather, is actually a palindrome. Right? That's basically what my method should be doing. So what does that mean? It should do this. So I'm expecting my method is palindrome, question mark, with an argument of, what's like a palindrome argument? What's a word? Race car? We can do race car. You guys cool with race car? Right? Wait, before I get any further, who knows what a palindrome is? Who doesn't know what a palindrome is? Okay, no problem. Glad I asked. So a palindrome is a word that when spelled backwards is exactly the same word, right? So for example, if I were to take the word, I don't know, race car. God damn, race car is terrible, right? If I were to take from back to forward, I would spell the same word, right? So what's the first letter here? R. The second letter is A. Third letter is C. Fourth is E. I have another one, C here, another A here, and another R here. Did you see that? Does that make sense? So it's a word spelled forwards and backwards, the exact same word. So let's try race car. Great. And what is it supposed to be? It's supposed to be true. I want it to return true, if that's true, right? This is an additional matcher, Christina, like from the RSpec expectations, that checks a really, really specific thing, right? It checks to see if the object is exactly the same object. Here, it doesn't really make sense because we're just checking to see a Boolean, so we want it to be equivalent to. Right? And then there's other matchers that we will get into a little bit, but that's kind of what the other gem does. It gives you more of these matchers, right? So it doesn't have to just be equal to. It can not be equal to. It could be an error. Like I can force it to raise an error if my input's bad.
So in one of the other labs, remember the active record type versus array. So we change that to equivalent if that works.
Not to be equivalent, but what I could do is something like with the expectations, like to have class, and then I can say the active record class here or array.
Let's say you just wanted the output to be the same as equivalent.
Equivalent would work, but to be equal to, so like have class is one of them, right? Then you could do something like to actually spell the word equal out. Even though the return values are the same, do you remember like how I compared two different things with limit and limit 5? If I put this, it will fail because it also checks what type of object it is, what the class is. So again, Christina, like it just gives you all this extra sexy matchers, right? But for now, we're just going to go with this. Does that make sense? Does that work for everybody? And that's it. And then we end, whoop. And then we end that, and then we end the describe. Cool. Any questions so far? So, how do I run this? Man, I am I'm losing it over here. Did I blow this up somehow? Weird. Cool. So, I failed. Undefined method is palindrome. Why?
Did you acquire the
Yes. The file, I'm calling on this method here. I've never defined it. So let me define it. How would I get it? All right. And I want the actual, like, the file program, right? I could put RB if I want to be mega specific, but Ruby knows Ruby, right? So, check. All right, let's try again. Bloop, bloop. Cool. So I expected true. Now you know where this is coming from, right? Like how I've gotten that. Here's a description. Describe this method. It should return true if the input is actually a palindrome. Now you know where I'm writing it, where it's coming from, and how I can read this. And where in your labs, if you did learn, you're like, oh, why is this test like awful? It's because it was probably described poorly. And we got to fix it. Right? So what did I get? I got nil. Why? Yeah, because I actually didn't write this function yet, yeah? This method? Whoa. Zoning. Cool. So, how do we do this? How do I get a palindrome? Who wants to help me out here? Yes, Andrew.
word is equal to word dot.
Now I'm about to get a huge payday because this app is about to be done. Yeah? We good? Let's test. Boom! Good to go. Donezo. All right? Who thinks we're done? Who's ready to submit, get paid? Yes. Love it. So some of you may or may not have been affected by imposter syndrome, something I made it a point to address within the first like hour of meeting you, right? I talked about it. Some of you have been like, out there in the real world, all right? Like, is my code production ready? Or like, I'm just like in this like pseudo schoolhouse environment, and you're wondering, how do I write production level code? Like something that I'm proud to put in to something that I should be putting on the internet. And when someone reads my code, they know that, hey, I'm not like, I'm not some nobody. Like, I know what I'm doing, right? This is how we do it. We write tests. We write lots and lots and lots of tests because the user will give you garbage. The user will give you so much garbage. There's going to be some command prompt, and it's going to be gets.chomp, and word, you're going to make word gets.chomp, and I swear to you, the word is not going to be race car. It'll be like this. Cool. Yeah, you like that? Exactly. Users are funny. So, we generally have a couple of rules, guidelines in RSpec, and that is something called the red-green refactor cycle. So if you notice here, this is red. That's bad, right? I failed this test. Then, God bless you, I wrote code to make it green, all right? First make it work, then make it sexy. So then I'm going to refactor it. Right now, Andrew, this is pretty slick code. Like, I can't really, God bless you, I can't really refactor this. So I'm going to just kind of like move on, right? The next important guideline is, if you actually want to take notes, the one thing I will mention is for RSpec, there's about like 3-4 important things to note when writing tests. And that is, first thing we want to do is we want to make sure it works, right? We know poop works, right? Or race car, we will race. You guys are just, see you happy? Claps all around? Cool. What would be like the next logical thing? What if it always returned true all the time for no reason? How would you know that? You wouldn't know. So we probably should do what? It should return false if the input is definitely not a palindrome, right? do a little expect action. All right. And what method are we testing? Cool, cool, cool. And what can we test with this? What should our input be?
Poo.
I like your style. Poo is not a palindrome, right? Very good. It only took you guys 3 weeks to get me. And that should be equal to what? Little false action? Yeah? Ja? So, let's find out. Look. Cool. 2 examples, 0 failures. Good to go. Can I refactor my code? Probably not. So, first principle is write code that you know works and that should pass. And then the second thing is write tests where you know it will fail. All right? So, those first 2. The next thing is something very interesting. It's something known as a concept called space complexity. So before you start saying like, oh, add spaces, or like, what about like all this extra white space? Think of space complexity in terms of the length and the size of the object that is being passed in. All right? So in theory, is this, hold on, let's just do this, right? It should return blank if the input is what, right? Let's find out. Would this be a palindrome? According to what you as the developer, here's where the Captain Planet reference would have been great. The power is yours. Thank you for our 4 Captain Planet fans. Very good. You decide as a developer. And by you decide, I mean you take a wild guess, and then the client will be like, no, I want it the other way. You're like, all right, great. Cool. That's going to happen. So what will this evaluate to in Ruby? If I fed it an empty string. Let's find out. Got true. An empty string when dot reversed is an empty string. Compared using double equals. Meaning it's going to double equals this to whatever I put in here. So when I dot reverse an empty string, what winds up happening? I get back empty string. Does empty string double equals empty string? Johnny. Does double string double equals, I'm sorry. Does empty string double equals empty string? Johnny.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Right? What do you want it to be? Do you think within the parameters of your application, does it make sense for an empty string to return true for a palindrome? Nelson? June? All right, so what we should do is we should be coming up as false, right? That's what we should be getting. How do we write that code? Look. Spectacle takes away all my atom shortcuts. Decisions. So, how do I check against it?
You check before you do the reverse. You check where did you get
So 3.5.
Yeah, 3.5. You would say if the word length
Is
less than or equal to
less than
that's a greater
less than or equal to
0.
0.
Because I don't know if you
Make it you just you have one letter too.
well,
We'll get to that here in a second.
well no, because if you say less than or equal to 1, a single character is a palindrome.
Just make it bigger now.
We'll get to that.
So we say less than 1.
So less than 1,
Yeah.
right? Execute this.
No.
Okay?
You want to return false.
If it's less than
You want to keep
One.
word double equal word dot reverse out of that if statement.
okay, so you want return false.
You can put false.
So what, like this?
Yeah.
I like the return.
Okay. You will really love it in JavaScript.
Else. Yeah.
Cool. Everyone cool with this? Great. Yeah. That's good. That was good. That was great. Yeah. So red, green, refactor, right? Can we make this sexier? Probably, but it's not important right now, right? Like it's pretty good where it is. It's not going to, you're not going to have massive optimization by refactoring at this point, right? The code's really readable and it does exactly what it should be doing, right? Basically, I want to check to see like, hey, is it less than 1? The other thing about space complexity is the 3 most common things are empty, 1, like literally 1 character, and then what? Like a million characters, right? Those are like the 3 wild edge cases that will sometimes break your code. So let's protect against it, right? Let's do it. Let's do a little bit of this, a little false action. All right, that false is really angry. Let's get that out of there. And what happens if it's just 1 letter? What do we want? Will a.reverse double equal a? So Ruby will say it's true. What do you want it to be?
False.
False? Yeah? Ja. Okay. So we know that Ruby's going to make it like true, right? So we should probably write some code. I could red, green, refactor it. Like I could show it fail, but we know it is, right? So how do we fix this?
Raise your requirement to 2. Line.
2? Okay. I'm cool with it. Let's test. Nice. Nice. Super smart. So, what if now we talked about like a really large space complexity, right? So what's that really long one? I always forget it. Like a man, a plan, canal, Panama. Let's just see if that's like the correct one. Oh, nope, that's the one. A canal, a man, a plan, a canal, Panama. Cool. So this is like one of those really long ones, right? Do we want to have any parameters in there to check against like a really long one? You're saying yes. Do you want parameters within your method that go, hey, listen, if it's over 50 characters, forget you. I'm not even going to bother checking it because that's ridiculous. This is the longest one we know about. And if you find one that's 50 characters, sell it to the government. Do we want that? Do we want to check to see if there's like a certain like number of inputs? Probably not, right? It's not really that important. We know this is like basically the longest one on record, I think. It's not really that important. So should return true, right? Do we even have to write a test for this? No, I wouldn't write a test for this. But that's something that you want to consider, right? Space complexity. Because whenever you write some methods, some clown's going to put in a string that is like really long. And if they keep doing that, your application is going to run really slowly because it takes processing power to like compute these things. So it's easier within your method to just be like, hey, if the character's over, like if word.length is over 50, false. And then like maybe throw an error or something, right? Oh, did I spell any words in there? Nope, I'm not a good monkey. So any questions on that? Like the space complexity? Okay. So the next thing, right, the fourth and last principle of like writing your tests is something known as edge cases. Who knows or has heard of or takes a wild guess at what an edge case is? Okay. Yes, please. Please.
Cases that need like an extreme. So, like you were saying, if we our edge cases for this would be lane 0, lane 1, and then lane with like 30 billion.
Yeah.
So an edge case would just be one of those cases. Just testing in like the worst cases.
In the weirdest possible scenarios, right? So, for example, that's a pretty good guess, right? It's like when something that you don't expect to be put in there is put in there. So what if should return blank if the input is what? 111? What if it's a number? Would 111 dot reverse equal 111?
Can you reverse it as an integer?
It's a string.
Oh, right, then you have to.
Right. But what if they put in a number? So let's find out. So these sweet strings, I put in 111. All right. I'm just putting nil there, so like I actually have like something. But what do we got? Undefined method length. Can I call length on a number?
But if you're calling like a kid's job and someone puts a number in that, it's automatically going to use that an accurate test case because you hit a straight integer.
While what you're saying is true, gets will take the input and convert it to a string. You don't have to use gets. You can use get. Get s is like get to string. And then chomp takes off the return carriage. So you just pull an integer if you wanted to.
You would never do that in this case because you're only doing like words.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly. You could if you wanted to. Because what if you wanted special characters? And you just want to ignore numbers. So the edge case here is what if like a number is put in, right? First of all, it breaks our code. Do we want that to return true or false?
False.
Do you want it to return true or false? I'm asking you. You're building this app. Return.
What makes it ass?
Return. Return. Like, do you want it to like be true or false if I give it a number? Okay.
That just had me laughing.
Huh?
I tried to say true matter, but it didn't work out.
Democracy. So it should return false if input is a integer. Fix num. Fire department's clapping for me. Fix num. Cool. So, how do we fix this?
You can do word zoom s to make sure you're always converting it to a string before we
It's making it false.
Yeah, because
Oh.
of that one.
So you can call the class and see if it's integer or string.
You can just put something before we're done.
So 3.5. What do you need?
Yeah. Before that class equals.
fix that.
Not equal to string.
Not equal to string. That's the better one, right?
Then you need to change
Little else if action. So what if word.class not equals string? Huh? Tricky. Tricky. If it's not equal to a string, what are we throwing in here? False? Yeah? When you start to get booleans, it's always like, I see like this a lot, like, and it's okay, all right? Cool. Nice. Should we refactor this now? Is this looking out of control? Justin.
If you're returning the same value, is it better to separate it into two different days, or you put like more?
Yeah? Red, green, refactor. Right? Code's looking a little sexier now.
Is
Right.
that less efficient?
Is it less efficient? I will say while microscopically less efficient, it is better code because it actually does what it's supposed to do in more cases. Right? Like the processing is like fractions of a millisecond slower, but you cover more bases. Like checking this in terms of computational power, if your computer breaks on this, you have a computer from like 1944. Yeah? That's a very good question though. It does not take that much processing power to run this, especially because it immediately returns false. Yeah? Any questions? Damn. I was gonna like have you all say hi, Brooke, but she left already. I was too slow. So, questions on this so far? Yep. Now, what if it was, what if I got this? Money. Will this return true? Do I want special characters to be involved? Huh? Just think, no worries, take your time. Bloop, 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 bloop. What?
True.
You want it?
Our soul names are kids nowhere.
It's 2018, I mean,
Like ketchup.
yeah, it could be anything they want, right? Will our code already check for this? Yes, it will already check for it because it's like, hey, is it a string? But wait, what does this actually return to? I don't know, let's find out. You know what I'm saying? Little IRB action. So we have a string, and I can do class on it. It's weird. Weird. Boogie. Wonderland. Weird. So what do I do? What do I do here? I want to change my method, yeah?
I mean, you can just do like, just go back to your house.
Go back to my code? Yep.
You can reverse the order. For example, you can say like if word dot length greater equal to 2, then you return the word equal. Yeah, and then just else.
So everything else false, right? Here's the important thing to know. My code will never run.
It will return false.
The word will go in there,
Yeah, but I mean,
and then it'll check word.class, and it'll break.
no longer word dot class. So you just specify word dot length.
Yeah, it'll call dot length
Yeah.
on this, and it'll break.
Yeah, and then you will return false because that will be.
Hear me out. This code never runs because it will break. I'll show you. Ready? So
Yeah.
if, right, $ dot length, right, and is equal to 1, right, puts working.
So you
It will never run. It'll never hit the next line. Because it'll run, it'll try to execute, right? It'll try to interpret this. So it'll go right here, and then it'll go if $dot class and break and stop. Just immediately. It'll be like, hey, that's cool. No. Right? Let me just get out of that. Oh, that's cool. Little Command Y action. Cool. All right, what do we do? Tricky. Tricky. Yes, I would Google it, but I'm here to guide you along, right? So what we want actually is some sort of error to come up if it's like weird, right? How do we do that?
Raise error.
Yes. I actually forgot how to write it. Yeah, I got it here somewhere. Cool. So what we want is it should throw an error if the input is what? Like a symbol? Because this is like the equivalent of like this, or like this, or like this, right? They're all like the same in terms of like how it's going to equate, right? Yeah? Let's not use symbol, because symbol is like an actual keyword. Is not a string, right? Or number. You got it, right? How do we do that? We need those extra matchers, Christina. When I'm trying to use the extra matchers, I'm using this. I'm putting it in a block. Okay? And instead of 2 equal, I want it to raise an error. And what kind of error do I want? It's like an argument error. If you were to Google it, you'll see that there are different types of errors you can throw. This is just one of them. Right here, argument error is great and it works perfect because the input, the arguments that you're giving me, they're trash. So I'm going to give you an argument error. Yeah? So let's find out. Was that useful at all? Just seeing that again? Like it'll never run. Like I know what you're saying, it will hit false, but it actually never gets past the line. Oops. I raised boo-boo. Oh. No. It's right here. Oh, it should work, but that's a great theory. Let's find it. Nope, it's not it. So it takes a block, right? I pass in the method, pass in this bad boy. What line?
So on line 25 where it says is underscore so open in parentheses and then closes.
You mean like wrap this whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I trust you. No. Let's read the error message. Syntax error, unexpected in parentheses. Interesting. Bloop. I didn't actually read the error for the other one. I failed. I failed you. Cool. This one, right? Yeah, I'm trying to get to that. All right, let's read this error message. Doesn't like this. Oh, is this giving me a problem? Let me just. Is the dollar signs giving me a problem? Yeah, the dollar signs giving me a problem. It's a weird Ruby keyword thing. So, cool. Expected argument error, but nothing was raised. So there was like no raised error in my method. Right? Cool? Just gonna let that sink in. I'm seeing a lot of confused faces. So I passed in these like slashes, which actually, when reversed, should be true. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to throw an argument error. I wanted to raise an error. But nothing was raised because in my method, I don't actually have an argument error. So how do I do that? Does anyone know? Taking some diligent notes. Let me Google that for you. I want to raise an argument error. Oops. And that's how it's done. If
We have like 5 catches.
catches, you will have them in JavaScript when you get promises. So if nobody knows what that means, don't worry. Don't worry. That's Mod 3 stuff. This is Ruby land. Mod 3 is JavaScript. You'll have catch in JavaScript, which will throw an error for you. But you have to hard code it now.
I don't understand why raise argument error.
So, in our program, right, in our tests, we try to prevent non-strings from coming in, right? So the $sign like just acted really weird. So I just changed it to like any other like symbol key that wasn't a string, essentially. Yeah?
And then we're doing raise underscore error, and that's the type of error that we want to.
Yeah, an argument error specifically. There are different types of errors, and I will let you explore what they are. But here I'm giving you one. Little golden nugget, little freebie, you know what I'm saying? So we're going to, sorry, just kidding. All right, we're going to raise an argument error if what?
Can we just say if the class is not a string or yeah, it's not a string? We want to do that for a number too.
Yeah, that work?
That's the only thing we're accepting. That's fine.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Don't we want an argument?
No,
It's instead of false.
it's better. Yeah.
I think it's better than false.
What do you guys think? This is your code, whatever you want it to be.
Do force.
Hmm?
I'll vote for mine too.
You what? So what do you want it to be? Raise argument error if word.class is not a string. And then if, I'd probably take out this or, that was bizarre. It's oring nothing. Word.length is less than 2, false. Else word dot double equal reverse.
We have to change our test then.
I don't know, let's test. It's still cool, apparently. Yeah, you're right, I didn't save. It's a bad mistake by me. Good shout. So it looks like it passed that last error, but because I wrote code, it broke something else before. It's important to write those tests and leave those tests there, right? So how do we fix this?
We're just changing our expectation of what, like that one's not, it shouldn't return false to us. We want it to also raise an error like the opposite. So it's just the test, like it's not that we broke the test, but it's just the flaw in the test now that's out of date. How we want to
Mm-hmm.
It no longer reflects the output.
Right. So do we still want this?
Yes, but you just said to raise argument error like we did.
You mean like this? Except I'm just gonna change it to and this should just be 111. Is that all right?
You're missing the opening curly braces.
Thank you. Yeah? Does that work for everybody? Nice. So I actually have this one over here because it makes a lot more sense. So I'm just going to change this to this. Yeah? Look weird? Does that look weird?
There's something, one of the readings we did that talked about rescuing after you raise an error. And there was only one reading on just wasn't clear like why you use that in conjunction with an argument you're raising inside a function. Is it, I was, like, should we put that in the head start?
Rescue.
Really hear it, yeah.
Rescue you would put in the method. But for right now, because I don't want to confuse class, I'm just trying to like explain this concept. Google rescue and like what it does in Ruby, and I will answer your specific question offline. But it's a good question. Anything else?
Wait, before you change it to the race card with the samples,
Mm-hmm.
so will Ruby see that whole word as a symbol or not a string?
What do you mean?
Well, can you change it back to me?
Yeah, sure. You mean like this? Oh, snap. Just kidding. Just kidding. Look up, look up, look up. I have it here somewhere. You mean this?
Yeah.
What about it?
So one of the characters in the string is a symbol,
Mm-hmm.
but how will Ruby read that?
This will read it just as a string.
Just as a string?
Yep.
And
So all your strings will now throw argument errors. We don't want that. We want it to just be like if it's not a string or a number. So I think what you're saying is
I'm saying like if there's a symbol in the string,
correct.
we need to test for that.
Yeah, we should test for that. So it should throw an error, right? So, question. Do you care if it has special characters in the string, yes or no? Like if this was in there, right, this string, do you care?
No.
I personally don't. I wouldn't care. But if you wanted to test for it, we can. But personally, this looks okay to me. As like this is just a string. It's got a sexy thing in it, but if that sexy thing matches on the other side, I'm still going to consider that a palindrome in my book.
But what if someone put like an exclamation point at the end? It wouldn't, the code wouldn't work.
You're talking about like this.
Yeah.
It would just return false. The code would read it. So it's just doing its job. In the same way that if I did this, it would return true. The code is just doing its job. The question I had for you was, do you care that there are special characters within a string? I don't. I mean, a palindrome is a palindrome at this point, right? Yeah? All right. Anything else? Any other wild scenarios? What if the input should... We talked about this, right? Painful. Contains white space. So, for example, let's just rip this. All right, like, do you care? Are we getting away with murder over here? Like, what's going on? Will this evaluate to true or false? Or nil, or whatever? It evaluates to true. Do we care? Huh? You don't care.
What happens if you put a space at the end?
You mean like this?
That would be like those are
It'd be false.
It would be false. Do you care now?
yeah, because I only care about the characters. Because if you put in like a string that's like a whole sentence, you still want to be able to test the sentence. You don't want to count the.
Who agrees? I should basically wipe out all the spaces in there, right? Like if it's a palindrome, it's a palindrome. If you put spaces in there wildly for whatever reason, that's cool. It should still be a palindrome, right? All the letters back and forwards should make sense. So this should be true. Is it? Oh snap! What did I do?
Line 21.
Did I like throw some weird stuff in there? Oh, ja. Thank you. Huh? So this should be true, right? It should return true regardless, right? Of like what, spaces? Is that okay? Something like that? Remember, this is like just your English for you to understand when you read later for your test. Because if the test fails later, like you're gonna fail test 3 and you're already on test 50, you're gonna want to just read that description and be like, okay, I understand what it's saying.
Should be regardless of spaces if remaining letters.
If what? Remaining letters actually make a palindrome? Because I'm hard coding true in here, right? So it should actually be a palindrome regardless of spaces, only in this test case. How do we get rid of it? How do we get rid of like the spaces in here? Because it obviously failed. Ja? Do you want to steal on that one? Because I'll give you an easy one first, and then we'll wrap up with that one, and then I'll show you my code. All right? Yeah? Cool. So what if, in this wild scenario, bloop bloop bloop, should return true, regardless of. What if I did this? Is RACECAR a palindrome? Yeah? Should be like case agnostic. We cool with that? How do we fix this? Let's just downcase it, right? So what are we downcasing? Word. Before or after the reverse? So this will be the same?
No, why not? It's going to look at the first letter and you make it more.
Yeah, but if we have capitalized in like the middle, it doesn't very much first later.
Yeah, I guess if you.
Downcase does it.
Passed. Yeah? In this case, it doesn't really matter because downcase is going to evaluate the reverse afterwards, before it hits the. So it'll reverse it, then downcase, or it'll downcase, then reverse it before it evaluates the comparison. So it's irrelevant.
What if you have like random like periods in a sentence? Like it's the same thing twice.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're saying is like in the same way of this test,
Yeah.
right? Like you're talking about like this. What?
Yes.
Yeah. So how do we do this? Did I delete something by accident? Oh, so zone it. Did I also add extra tab in here? I didn't say anything? Gross. It's like really hard from this angle. Right? I'm sorry. So how do we fix this? Who knows what G-sub is? What's G-sub?
When you sub a character for different. That was like a global substitution, which means it's going to pull on every instance of whatever, or instance, not instance as a class, but like every instance of a character that you specify and replace it with.
Yes. You're both right. Right? What it's going to do is it's going to look through your word, and then the first argument is what is it that you're looking for, and the second argument is what do you want to replace it with, right? So let's go. hit the herb, right? So I can do a string AAA dot gsub, and the first argument should be what I'm looking for, and the second argument is going to be B. I think that's good. Yeah. All right. It's going to find all the A's in there in the same way that I did something dumb. Had two quotes. Sorry. It only found the A's and replaced them with B. Yeah? Cool. So, someone mentioned something called regex. Who knows what regular expression is? What's regular expression?
You identify some characters and numbers using some special characters.
Okay. Close. I'll give you that. So, anyone else?
I touched on it a little bit the AI yesterday. It's basically like it's kind of its own language, and it just searches for patterns in language.
Yeah, it's basically its own language. Regular expression will look for any pattern, and it's one of the most powerful things you can ever learn. I will also warn you, it is obnoxiously difficult to read and even harder to write. But don't let that fool you, right? We're gonna figure this out. So here's my test string, right? I have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Here's a quick reference. This is not all encompassing, but it will be very helpful, right? So any digit is /D. Ready? /D. What if I sprinkled in some letters in here? It won't find it. It'll only pull these. So I could gsub /D and replace it, right? Like if I did something like, where's my terminal? Like 1, 2, 3, all right? Dot gsub. So notice how notice how regular expression is written. It's with this open slash and this open slash, right? And then this \D. So if I wanted to, I would do this slash to start it, yeah? And then this is the \D. So far so good? That's the first one. And what do I want to replace it with?
Nothing.
Number, right? Random number. Something like that. And that's how it works. Any questions? So with that being said, all right, what do we got here? Oh, low battery. Cool. What am I looking for? /W. What about if I were to throw in number, symbol? Is that what I'm looking for? Spaces, weird symbols, any non-word character. A space is not a word character, meaning just if it's not A through Z, you can go home. You know what I'm saying? So, what does it look like? How do we write this?
Word that word equals word.
Huh? Let me help you out. Huh? Where? Okay. Dot G sub, right? And then I think it's like I start the regex. I need a \, noun, space character, and I want to wipe it, and I want to put it with the empty string. And I want to do this. Yeah?
Yep.
Oop. That was bad. Okay, nice. I mean, that's usually the clap moment, but that's fine. I mean, it's no big deal. All right, cool. This is your code. Pretty good, actually. All right, so basically, the thing I was trying to address in the beginning was you're concerned about, hey, is my code production ready? Like, do I write production grade code? And the bottom line is, now you can. Before we started with what? Just word, double equal word dot reverse, and you're like, yo, I'm done, time to get paid, I'm submitting that. There's so many bugs to your code, and there's so many edge cases to your code that I would be like, all right, listen, it works, but it needs work. All right, this is what I would put. I would basically raise an argument. If it's not a string, return false. If it's listen to. The downcase word, I would downcase it, wipe it all, and then just compare them. I mean, that's also usually a cat moment, but if there are no other questions for RSpec, that's basically the concept behind RSpec. The red-green refactor, right? Now it looks a little bit sexier. Now it's a little bit easier to read. Now it works a little bit faster, actually. And now the keys to the kingdom are yours. You know how to write tests now, and this is what I would submit for like one method in my code base if they ask me to build a feature. All right? First make it work, then make it sexy. All right, that's all I got for you.